Emily Carter was the kind of neighbor everyone trusted. She smiled, helped the elderly, volunteered at community events, and lived a quiet life on a peaceful street where nothing ever seemed to go wrong. To the outside world, she looked like the perfect example of kindness and responsibility. But behind that calm smile and carefully organized life, Emily was hiding a secret so disturbing that when the truth finally began to surface, it shocked an entire community. What investigators discovered inside her home would connect her to a series of mysterious disappearances that had puzzled authorities for years. And by the time anyone realized who Emily Carter really was, it was already too late. The street was calm, the kind of neighborhood where people believed nothing bad could ever happen. Small houses stood neatly beside each other, and the same families had lived there for years. Children rode their bikes in the afternoons. Neighbors greeted each other while collecting their mail, and the quiet evenings were usually filled with nothing more than the distant sound of televisions or barking dogs. In the middle of that peaceful street lived a woman named Emily Carter, someone almost everyone trusted. Emily had moved into the neighborhood several years earlier. She kept her home clean, her garden trimmed, and her life carefully organized. Many people knew her from the local community center where she volunteered several times a week. She helped organize events, assisted elderly residents, and often brought food to people who were sick or struggling. Because of this, she quickly became someone the neighborhood admired. People described her as polite, helpful, and dependable. From the outside, Emily's life looked simple and ordinary. She followed the same routine almost every day. Early in the morning, she would leave for work, walking calmly down the sidewalk before driving away. By evening, she returned home quietly, closing the door behind her and disappearing from sight until the next morning. No loud parties ever came from her house, no strange visitors arrived late at night, and nothing about her behavior ever seemed suspicious. But behind the peaceful routine and friendly smiles, something unusual had been happening for a long time. A few neighbors had noticed small details they couldn't fully explain. Late at night, long after the rest of the street had gone dark, a faint light sometimes appeared from a tiny basement window beneath Emily's house. Most people ignored it. After all, no one had any reason to question Emily Carter. The investigation began quietly, but quickly grew more serious. When officers first entered Emily Carter's home, nothing appeared out of place. The living room looked calm and carefully arranged, with soft lighting and neatly placed furniture. Books were stacked perfectly on a shelf, and framed photos showed smiling moments from what seemed like a peaceful life. The kitchen was just as organized. Every dish was clean, every surface spotless, and even the refrigerator looked perfectly arranged. To anyone else, the house looked completely normal. But experienced investigators knew that sometimes the most carefully organized places were hiding something beneath the surface. As they moved through the house, they carefully documented everything they saw. Nothing seemed broken or forced, which suggested that whatever had happened here had not involved any obvious struggle. Then one detail caught their attention. At the end of a narrow hallway was a door leading to the basement. The door itself looked slightly newer than the rest of the house. The lock had clearly been replaced not long ago, and the frame showed signs of recent repairs. It was a small detail, but enough to make detectives curious. When officers opened the door and walked down the stairs, the air felt cooler and heavier. A single light illuminated the basement, revealing rows of large plastic storage containers stacked carefully against the walls. Everything was arranged with unusual precision. At first glance, the containers seemed harmless. Some held old clothes, books, and household items. But when detectives opened one particular container, the atmosphere in the room immediately changed. Inside were wallets, watches, rings, and small personal belongings. Each item had a small handwritten tag attached to it, and every tag carried a different name. Detectives immediately began examining the names written on the tags found inside the containers. At first, they assumed the items might belong to friends, relatives, or people Emily had helped over the years. But when investigators entered the names into national missing persons databases, a disturbing pattern began to appear. One by one, the names matched individuals who had disappeared over the last several years. The discovery changed the entire direction of the investigation. The missing people came from different towns and backgrounds. Some were travelers passing through nearby cities, while others were local residents who had vanished without explanation. Many of their cases had slowly faded from public attention because police had never found clear evidence of what happened to them. Until now, detectives began comparing the timelines of those disappearances with Emily Carter's daily life. What they found raised even more questions. Several of the missing individuals had last been seen near locations where Emily regularly volunteered or worked. Some had attended community events she helped organize, while others had visited the same neighborhoods she frequently traveled through. The connections were too strong to be dismissed as coincidence. Investigators then looked deeper into Emily's past. Records showed that she had not always lived in the neighborhood. Over the previous decade, she had moved several times, living in different cities across the state. At first, this seemed normal, but when authorities contacted police departments in those cities, another troubling pattern appeared. Each location where Emily had previously lived also had unsolved missing person cases. Suddenly, the quiet volunteer who seemed harmless was linked to a growing number of disappearances. And investigators were beginning to realize that Emily Carter's life might not have been ordinary at all. As the investigation continued, forensic teams carefully examined every corner of Emily Carter's house. At first, they focused on collecting fingerprints, fibers, and any small traces that might explain what had happened inside the home. Most of the rooms still looked completely normal, but investigators knew that important evidence often hides in places people rarely look. Their attention soon returned to the basement. While moving the stacked containers along the wall, one investigator noticed that a large shelf seemed slightly out of place. It had been pushed tightly against the wall, almost as if someone wanted to hide what was behind it. After shifting the shelf aside, officers discovered a small metal cabinet built into the wall. The cabinet was locked, and unlike most items in the basement, it looked older and heavily used. When detectives forced it open, they found dozens of notebooks stacked neatly inside. Each notebook was filled with careful handwriting. Page after page contained dates, locations, and descriptions of people Emily had apparently encountered over the years. The entries were organized in a precise pattern, almost like a personal record system. Some pages included detailed notes about where certain individuals had been seen, what they were wearing, and even what items they carried with them. The most chilling detail appeared at the end of every entry. Next to each name was a date circled in red ink. When investigators compared those dates to police records, they made a shocking discovery. Many of them matched the exact days when those individuals had officially been reported missing. Emily Carter had not only kept their belongings, she had also carefully documented them. As investigators continued examining Emily Carter's life, they began looking beyond her house and personal notebooks. Detectives reviewed her financial records, bank transactions, and digital history, hoping to understand how she had managed to hide such a disturbing secret for so long. At first, everything appeared perfectly ordinary. Her bills were always paid on time, her spending habits were modest, and she even made regular donations to local charities. Nothing in her financial records suggested anything suspicious. But one small detail soon caught the attention of investigators. Over the past several years, Emily had quietly rented multiple storage units in different towns. The payments were small and spread out over time, making them easy to overlook during a quick review of her finances. However, when detectives mapped the locations of those units, they noticed something unsettling. Many of them were located in areas connected to the same cities where several missing person cases had been reported. Police quickly obtained legal permission to search the storage units. When officers opened the first unit, they found rows of sealed boxes stacked neatly against the walls. Inside those boxes were more personal belongings, wallets, bags, watches, clothing, and small objects that clearly belonged to different people. Just like the items found in her basement, each object had a small handwritten label attached to it. And once again, every label carried a name. The discovery made it clear that the collection inside Emily's house had only been a small part of something much larger. The number of belongings suggested that far more people might have been connected to this mystery than investigators originally believed. But there was another shocking problem. Emily Carter herself had completely disappeared. As soon as investigators confirmed that Emily Carter had disappeared, the case quickly expanded beyond the quiet neighborhood where it had begun. Police departments from several cities joined the search, sharing information and reviewing every possible lead. Authorities released Emily's photograph to the public and asked anyone with information to come forward. What had started as a local investigation was now becoming a much larger manhunt. But Emily had clearly planned her escape. When detectives reviewed security camera footage from nearby streets, they saw her car leaving the neighborhood late at night, only hours before officers arrived at her house. The footage showed her driving calmly, following normal traffic routes, and giving no sign that anything unusual had happened. It appeared she had left with enough time to avoid immediate suspicion. Days later, investigators located her car abandoned near a highway parking area several miles outside the city. The vehicle was empty, and there were no signs of a struggle or forced entry. It seemed likely that Emily had left the car behind and continued traveling using another method. Further investigation showed that her phone had been turned off around the same time the car was abandoned. Her bank accounts also remained untouched, suggesting she had prepared alternative ways to survive without leaving an obvious financial trail. Meanwhile, forensic teams continued searching through the growing amount of evidence collected from her house and storage units. The belongings connected to dozens of missing people created a chilling picture of what might have happened over the years. Yet the most important question still remained unanswered. Where had Emily Carter gone? Months passed, but the investigation into Emily Carter did not slow down. Law enforcement agencies across several states continued searching for any trace of her. Her photograph appeared on news broadcasts, online reports, and missing suspect alerts. Authorities hoped that someone, somewhere, would recognize her face and report her location. Tips soon began arriving from different cities. Some people claimed they had seen a woman who looked like Emily working temporary jobs in small stores, gas stations, or roadside diners. Others believed they had noticed her staying briefly in cheap motels before leaving again. Each report created a new lead, and investigators carefully followed every possibility. But every time officers reached those locations, the result was the same. Emily was already gone. It slowly became clear that she had planned her disappearance with extreme care. She appeared to move often, never staying in one place long enough to attract attention. Without using her real name, phone, or bank accounts, she left very little trace behind. Meanwhile, investigators continued studying the notebooks discovered in her basement. At first, the pages seemed like simple records, but experts eventually noticed strange patterns hidden within the writing. Small symbols and markings appear beside certain locations, almost like a coded map. When authorities connected those markings together, they created a trail leading to several remote areas Emily had visited in the past. Search teams were sent to those locations, hoping they might finally uncover answers. And in one isolated area far from any town, investigators discovered evidence that confirmed their worst suspicions. The people connected to Emily Carter had never simply disappeared. The discovery in the remote area confirmed what investigators had feared for months. Evidence found there finally proved that the disappearances connected to Emily Carter were not accidents or simple mysteries. The missing people had been victims of something far more disturbing. Forensic teams carefully collected everything they could find, hoping the evidence would help bring closure to families who had spent years searching for answers. News of the discovery quickly spread across the country. The quiet neighbor once known for volunteering and helping others was now linked to a series of tragic crimes that had remained hidden for years. Communities where Emily had once lived began re-examining old missing person cases, wondering how many more might be connected to her. Despite the growing evidence, one major problem remained. Emily Carter was still missing. Investigators continued searching for any sign of her, but she seemed to have completely vanished. Some experts believed she had carefully planned a new identity long before the investigation began. Others thought she might be hiding in remote areas where no one would recognize her. Without new leads, the search slowly became more difficult as time passed. Years later, the case still remains one of the most unsettling mysteries investigators have faced. Emily Carter's carefully hidden life proved that appearances can be dangerously misleading. The friendly volunteer many people trusted had been living a secret life no one could have imagined. And somewhere out there, the woman responsible for those dark secrets may still be free, leaving behind a chilling reminder that sometimes the most dangerous people are the ones who seem the most ordinary.